welcome to the very first edition of the AWA 1990 project. I know you guys have been waiting quite a while. I've been hyping this up for months, and I'm very excited to bring this to you guys. We're going to have some great AWA talk. We're going to talk about how we can save this legendary promotion, and then we'll pick up any topics of the day that are relevant to the modern wrestling scene as well. So, again, those are the three facets of this particular show. If you're a fan of the NWA 1983 project, if you're a fan of NWA 1984 project, you'll like this show. If you're not a fan of those, you didn't watch them because they're really good.
What are you doing here?
You know, when it comes down to the AWA in general, it was one of the most important promotions in the history of professional wrestling. And I think a lot of people who saw the dying days of the AWA have a different opinion regarding its stature in the history of professional wrestling. I think a lot of people see it as a punchline, as a joke. When you watch those episodes from 89 and 90, they're bad. And I think, you know, a lot of the criticism for the AWA is, you know, the fact that they were dying for so long. And we all witnessed it on ESPN or on the syndication shows. And it went on for fucking ever. You know, most of the time when wrestling promotions die, they die relatively quickly. You know, ECW is, you know, cranking, basically, for the most part. And then all of a sudden it's gone. And a lot of people who are watching those shows that are not newsletter readers or what have you don't know what's going on backstage, and everything seems fine. And all of a sudden, like, oh, yeah, we're closing the doors. Same thing with Jim Crockett Promotions. They're on top of the fucking world, right? Fantastic stuff. You know, 86 is the banner year. You know, half of 87 is really good. The second half of 87, not that great, and then they're out of business. And they're purchased by TBS. So I think a lot of the, you know, kind of the punchlines or what makes the AWA a joke is that we sat there from 1986 to 1990 going into 91 and we watched this promotion die, you know, with your Team Challenge series and all your shenanigans and tomfoolery with your lumberjack Scott Nortons and Eric Bischoff. And I think when people think about the AWA, they think about that particular time frame, not the 30 years prior to that, where, you know, you can make an argument that they were a number one promotion in the United States. You can make an argument that they were at one point the number one promotion in the world. They're definitely the biggest promotion, the biggest territory during the territory era. I mean, not only was it the Midwest, they get into, you know, they went into Omaha, Nebraska, they went into Denver, Colorado, they're in San Francisco, they're in Vegas. So in terms of just geography, in terms of, you know, how vast that territory is, it was a huge territory, and it did fantastic business for an extremely long time. And we get to the early 80s, wrestling's changed, shit goes sideways, and it falls apart. And again, I think most of us, you know, because of the advent of videotape and people were taping off the TV, we literally witnessed it die. It's like seeing your dog. You had your dog for 15 years and you're just watching them waste away, and we all watched the AWA waste away. And it's sad to me because it is a legendary promotion, and they had great crowds, and they had, you know, fantastic angles, and they did so much innovative stuff. A lot of stuff that the WWE has copied from the AWA. I'll give you a perfect example of that. So everyone's seen, you know, throughout the 80s, would it be on Superstars or Challenge, the backstage interview, they have like a WWF logo, Gene's there, and he's interviewing a wrestler. You know, prior to 1984-ish, 85-ish, they did all their interviews ringside next to the ring. Now you see all those famous interviews with Vince, and he's in front of the ring, and he's interviewing Jimmy Snuka, or he's interviewing Andre the Giant. Now, you go back to the AWA. The AWA was doing that first. You know, they had the backdrop. They had Gene there. They had Hogan or Dr. D. Davis Schultz, Jesse Ventura. The WWF took that from the AWA. And I also think that, I don't know, something had to happen between Vince and Vern that no one knows about. Because the way the WWF and Vince McMahon in particular, it seemed like they had a personal vendetta against Vern in the AWA. He didn't have that kind of animosity for Jim Crockett. He didn't have that kind of animosity for Bill Watts. He didn't have that animosity for Paul Bosch or Fritz Von Erich or Stu Hart. Ole Anderson he did. But that's a whole other story. We know the story behind that, and we'll tell that in another episode. But it seemed like, I don't know if Vern talked shit to a 23, 24-year-old Vince, or made him feel stupid, or something had to happen. And I wish Greg's still around, and Greg tells his stories. And of all the Greg Gagne interviews I've heard, I've never heard of an interaction like that with Vern, maybe at an NWA conference or something like that, or whatever, where he just told Vince, "You're a piece of shit, get the fuck away from me." And Vince held that against him for fucking ever, because the shit that he did to the AWA helped in putting them out of business. Vince would always say, the WWE would say, like, "I never put anyone out of business, blah, 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 blah." No, Vince personally tried to put the AWA out of business. That is a fucking fact. When you take Hulk Hogan and Dr. D. David Schultz and Gene Okerlund, and then you bring them right back into Minneapolis, like right after you sign them and run a show, you're looking sideways. When you are calling the IRS because the AWA is having a $25,000 battle royal and they're collect this fictitious sum of money, that's personal. That's not business. That's predatory, 100%. We're going to go through everything. We're going to go talk about the history of the AWA. We're going to talk about the supercars. We're going to talk about a lot of the talent that came through, and everyone that was anybody came through the AWA. We're going to talk about the wrestlers that Vern trained, would it be the Iron Sheik or Ric Flair or Ricky Steamboat. We're going to cover all facets of the AWA. And a lot of people are asking me, hey, why are you doing a show on the AWA? Number one, there's not a lot of people talking about that. And when people like to go right, I go left. Number two, I want to kind of change the narrative that the AWA was some sort of joke, and it wasn't. It was a really good promotion for a very long time. So we're gonna tackle those narratives, and we're gonna try to pick them apart the best we can. In addition to that, we're gonna have a fantasy booking simulator, as you're watching on the screen right now. We're using Fire Pro Wrestling World to kind of have a visual representation of what we're talking about here, in terms of a fantasy booking scenario here to kind of save it. Now, the shape that the AWA is in, say, the first quarter of 1990, you can't fix that with good booking. There's no way. They're too far gone at this point. You can't fix that. So what we're going to do is, in this simulation, in this fantasy world, I'm going to go in and I'm going to buy the AWA. I'm going to go to Vern with a briefcase full of money. Here you go, Vern. I'm going to send you off to retirement. Greg, I got a couple of jobs for you to help us with the transition, and you guys will get a paycheck forever at this point. We might still use Vern later down the road, but that gets into what we're talking about with some of the issues with AWA. Vern, we're going to keep you and Greg off TV for a while. We're going to keep you in the office. Vern, if you'd like to retire, this is your opportunity. Greg, I had some ideas in terms of running possibly the wrestling school. We will see how that goes moving forward. They're going to take this deal. It's going to be for a nice sum of money, not too much because it's not worth a whole lot at this point. They're dead and they're buried. So in terms of the fantasy booking scenario, we're going to jump into that first, as I gotta lay the landscape here, so to speak. So we are right before WrestleMania 6. We're talking about March 1990 as we go through. And we are going to establish this company that's going to purchase the AWA. The AWA deal goes through. Now what do we do? Now this is when the boring part comes in. With any business, when any business entity, you have to establish an infrastructure. So you got to have your company in place, your office staff. You got to have your legal department. You got to create your marketing department. You have to create your licensing department. You have to create your sales department. It's going to try to get us sponsorships, and we're going to try to get syndication time throughout the country. All this stuff has to be set before we even sign one wrestler, before we even announce that we're taking over the company. We have to get these things set. We're going to have a nice office building. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to cost us a lot of money. We're talking about upwards of $100 million is that we're going to use to invest in this company. It's a lot. But I have a lot of money, so it's okay. Also going into this, knowing the fact that we're probably not going to profit in the first 3 years. Like, we're going to lose money until we establish ourselves. We're hopefully sometime in 1993, 94, we can start making money. We'll see about that. I don't know. So once the infrastructure is set, again, I want to get, Madison Avenue. I want to have the best marketers. I want to have the best lawyers because there's going to be some legal entanglements that we're going to run into down the road. I know this for a fact. They're going to handle these wrestler contracts, and the wrestlers will be on contracts. It'll be guaranteed contracts. I know that's a lot of people think that's a mistake, but I think to get people to come to the AWA, I want to have to overpay, and I want to overpay with years. It's like when you have a really bad sports franchise and you're trying to get stars, but you can't get stars because you've been bad for so long that you're going to have to overpay for maybe second-tier talent just to get some name recognition on your roster. Again, we want to have our marketing department and the license department. We want to go in full bore in terms of merchandising. So you have your T-shirts and you want to have, your video games and your action figures and all that kind of good stuff too. And, the AWA had a relationship with Remco in the past. Maybe we can get on with Mattel to create a line of action figures because, ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to win a wrestling war in the ring. You're not going to win a wrestling war on TV. These wars are won in the boardroom. Because anytime the WWE's business has suffered, live attendance went down, they always had these extra incomes, whether it be from a doofy calendar or a video game or a CD that they put out or a record they put out. They're getting this money from elsewhere than their wrestling products.
Right.
So we want to have that stream of income too because when times get tough, we can survive. A lot of these companies and a lot of these territories never had that additional revenue stream, and that's one of the reasons they went out of business because, hey, once you're not drawing and, the wrestling business goes on ups and it's downs, ups and it's downs. You got to have a plan for those down periods. And that's where you keep your money invested, would be merchandising and licensing and whatever. So once the infrastructure is set, we have a nice, beautiful office in downtown Minneapolis. That's where we're going to be stationed. The overall, I guess, mission statement for the promotion, we're going to try to keep it very Midwestern, very Minnesota-centric, because it's going to be important. Jim Barnett once said, one of the biggest mistakes he ever made, it was changing the name from Georgia Championship Wrestling to World Championship Wrestling.
Yep.
Just because it alienates your core audience, and if your core audience is in Georgia, no matter where you go, you make that a destination. So, and we want to work with local businesses. Now, if anyone knows anything about Minnesota, especially recent history of Minnesota and the businesses that are located there, Minnesota is Minneapolis, Minnesota is the headquarters for, I would say, the second largest brand in terms of retail, which is Target. They're from Minneapolis, and your Best Buys are also headquartered out, bring in these businesses as sponsors and possible partners down the road. So again, that marketing is going to be super important about what we're going to do moving forward. So it's going to be very Minneapolis-centric. Homecoming is the mission statement. And when we go through the roster, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about here. We're really interested in bringing guys back who were once successful over there that may have gone to a different promotion. Guys that may have started out in Minneapolis, and there's a lot of guys who did that. Like guys who were trained by Vernon, we want to bring those guys back. Guys who are from the area. We want to make it very centric to the Midwest. We want to cater to those Midwest fans that, other than it's Cleveland Midwest, I would say, other than Cleveland and Chicago and possibly Detroit are not being catered to by the WWF anyway.
Right.
And those are going to be war zones for us anyway because we're going to want to run Chicago, and we're going to want to run Detroit, and we're going to want to run Cleveland 100%. So that's where we have our fight on our hands. We're not going to be stupid enough to go, we're going to go run Hackensack, New Jersey, or we're going to go run Long Island, or we're going to go run and Charlotte. No, we're going to stay at our home base, Baltimore. We're going to stay in your Denver, Colorado's, your Omaha, Nebraskas, your Green Bay, Wisconsin's, in San Francisco, because we already have a presence there, and we're going to do shows in Las Vegas. And not at the Showboat. That's a shitty.
The Showboat Pavilion. Come on now.
It's a shitty fucking. Can we get into Caesars or
that
MGM
makes
or something?
Better. It's a dump.
It's just so gross.
I got picking the gorgeous ladies of wrestling to come bursting in.
No women's division.
I'm David McClain.
No women's division until we can do it right. So, at some point, we're probably going to bring back Medusa and get some women over from Japan. So, we'll wait on that. Now, in terms of Now, we went over the mission statement. It's going to be homecoming. We're going to bring everyone back. And right off the bat, again, understand where we're at right now. We're in 1990. We're going to want to make a couple deals here. In terms of on-air talent, I'm of the opinion that your play-by-play announcer, your backstage interviewer, and your color man are probably the most important people. They're the biggest stars on your TV because you see them every week. Right. So when it comes to WWF, we saw Vince, Gorilla, Jesse, Bobby, Mean Gene every week. Those are the biggest stars because they're on television every week. So, as we all know, Jesse Ventura has his fallout with the WWF going into the summer of 1990. So we're going to pick up Jesse Ventura right off the bat.
Yep.
We're going to pay him a lot of money. We're going to bring him home. No, he wants to do his movies. He has time to do his movies. He wants to run for mayor. We'll support him 100% behind those endeavors, and we're going to pay him a lot of money because I think having Jesse Ventura gives us instant credibility right off the bat. Now, in terms of play-by-play, you have two options here. Tony Schiavone leaves the WWF right before WrestleMania 6. He wants to go back home to Georgia. Maybe we can convince him otherwise. They come up to Minnesota. It's going to be great. We're going to pay you a lot of money. If we're unable to get Schiavone, and it'd probably be a mistake on his part because we're going to give him a lot of, producer roles. So he's going to be very much in charge of the product for television. If he's unavailable and doesn't make the jump, it's going to have to be Eric Bischoff. So you're going to have Eric Bischoff and Jesse Ventura as your play-by-play and color guy. And if anyone knows anything about Mean Gene Okerlund, he gets fired every 6 months from the WWF. All the time. He gets fired all the time. He's usually back by the next set of TVs anyway. But he always has issues with the WWF in terms of what they're doing with him. And we're going to go back to Mean Gene, and we're going to make Mean Gene a deal that he cannot refuse, an offer he can't refuse. We're going to bring Gene back. So right now, what we have right now is, in a perfect scenario, of Schiavone, Ventura, and Okerlund as your backstage interviewer. That's what we have. Hopefully that's enough. Now, in terms of production, I have all this money. I'm going to have to invest in everything brand new. New cameras, new lights, new rings. Everything is brand new. Yep. And we want to get the best, director that we can get. Maybe someone from ESPN.
Yeah, you get the voice anyways.
Right. We would prefer someone probably from ABC, Wide World of Sports, to be the director of the show. Not Craig Leathers because he misses spots all the time as a director. But we want, and when I talked about all these departments, they're going to have wrestling people populating them as well as our corporate people, because you need someone to translate the wrestling business into the corporate world. So when you have your marketer, there's going to be a wrestling person in the marketing department working with our marketers to make sure that's going the way it needs to go. We're going to have a youth movement, so we're going to hire a lot of people for these departments, either straight out of college or college interns. Like, I want to keep it under 30 if I can, with some people who are older that can see the horizon, the future on that's what's coming. We want to keep it very current because that's one of the biggest issues with the AWA in its later years. It wasn't current. Like, you watch episodes from 89 and it feels like 85. A lot of reasons because those are reruns, but still, it feels old. Want a fresh coat of paint on this. We want it looking good. We're going to spare no expense on the production. We want it to be as slick as the WWF. And you can say what you want about the WWF, Vince McMahon. If you watch episodes of the, and then some of them don't hold up, but if you watch, Saturday Night's Main Event, and you watch the pay-per-views, and you see how well they're produced, it's very slick. We want to bring that to the AWA. It's very important. So right off the bat, we have our first show. And it's going to be an interesting show because, as I drink, we're going to have a very, very big debut. Actually, we're going to have two of them on this show. And the debut is going to be a running theme as we completely overhaul the entire roster. One of the most difficult things, and I think AEW struggles at this to a degree, is when you're bringing in a bunch of talent that maybe not been seen in your area, or maybe have to be the biggest stars that people would know all in at once. It's hard to give everyone individual attention when you're bringing so many guys in at the same time.
Right. Yep.
We have to, because we have to turn over the roster. It's gonna be over a 6 or 7 week period, but you're gonna see a lot of debuts right off the bat. So we have our first, big TV taping. I don't give a fuck if I have to paper the entire arena. I need to have a crowd there. As we learned, if you watch the recent Raws and SmackDowns, it's very important to have a crowd there.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't care if they have to get bums off the street. I don't care if they have to go to elementary schools or high schools. They give away free tickets. I don't care. I need people in this building. It has to look good because this is the first show of a new era, and it's going to go out nationwide on syndication. Our deal with ESPN, although very important, is very difficult to do. They want 5 days of wrestling, 1 hour. You know how hard it is to produce that? Like, I don't even know how you would do that. But as we get through the process, I do have a couple ideas about where we can take that ESPN show. But again, at this point, it's still 1990. Syndication is king, and we got to have this show looking good. The two big debuts on this show that really make a big difference is the debut of the Road Warriors on this show.
Nice.
Now the Road Warriors leave. There's a gap there right around this time when they leave NWA, WCW before they go to WWF. There's a gap here. We're going to bring the Road Warriors home. They're from Minnesota. They build out Chicago. Very important. Again, we're going to have to overpay the Road Warriors. I understand that. It is what it is. So the Road Warriors debut, and they get in a competition with our World Tag Team Champions, Mike Enos and Wayne Bloom, the Destruction Crew. On this show.
The Beverly Brothers don't really do it for you?
Well, I like them. I don't like them as the Beverly Brothers. They're a good team. But Destruction Crew, Road Warriors. Okay. It's gonna be not gonna have a match yet, but they're gonna have a confrontation where challenges are thrown. Maybe there's a pull apart there. And the main event, and we have Larry Zybszcko taking on a mystery opponent. It may or may not be a mystery opponent, depending on how you want to play this. We could have vignettes with the debuting wrestler, which would be Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Steamboat, again, leaves the NWA like the middle of '89, the summer of '89. Doesn't start off with the WWE until right after WrestleMania. We have a gap here. And whatever it takes to get Ricky Steamboat signed, if I have to make Bonnie an on-air character, I will. I have to pay a lot of money to Ricky up front, I will. Mm-hmm. But Ricky Steamboat's going to be the linchpin of everything that we're doing here. He's, the year before he was NWA champion. He was on national television. He's with WWF. He has a lot of cachet. It's going to be very important. That first show, Larry Zybszcko, who is the AWA world champion, versus Ricky Steamboat. Ricky Steamboat wins the title in that first match of the first show. Kind of aping the whole Hulk Hogan thing, where Hulk Hogan basically comes in, and in a couple weeks he's the world champion. We're going to do that even shorter time. Ricky Steamboat walks in and wins the world title right off the bat. So right now we have the Road Warriors and you have Ricky Steamboat, and we're swapping out guys on our roster. Now, when it comes to the overall roster, there'll be a lot of guys on this roster, a lot of young guys on there, a lot of guys from Japan and Mexico, a lot of guys that may not gotten the opportunities elsewhere that we're going to afford them here at the AWA. So I think that's very important. We want to have fresh guys, but we also want to have a couple of guys on there with some name recognition. I think it'll be super important. Like the Trooper and all those guys, that they're not going to cut it. They're not. This is not going to be able to do it for us. We want to go into the 90s. We want to go into the new generation, pardon the pun, with the fresh guys. So wherever it takes to debut these guys, would it be vignettes or even the old, these guys beat me up and I need a tag team partner. Who am I going to get? And it's going to be like an 8-week period where guys will be flooding in.
Yep.
Especially the guys that we signed. So just to quickly go, I want to go over a part of the roster. We're not going to go over the whole roster, but I want to go over pieces of the roster. And Matt, you can give me your thoughts on these guys as we go through them.
Sure.
One by one. So obviously, right off the bat, as you know, we signed Ricky Steamboat. So Matt, what do you think Ricky Steamboat can bring to the AWA in 1990?
Legitimacy, instantaneous. He's a top performer. This is 1990s. You're coming off your Wrestle War feud with Flair, so you got that going for you. He's an all-time babyface. So he gives you that top-tier threat to the championship, if you will. Who was the champion at the time? I forgot. In 1990.
AWA?
Was it Hennig?
Zybszcko.
Zybszcko. Oh, perfect. Yeah, because Zybszko's
Zybszko's a nice foil for him too, right off the bat. So what we're gonna bring Ricky Steamboat in. He beats Zybszko right off the bat. We're not gonna keep Zybszko in the main events for that long. They're gonna do a loop with rematches, and we can do some funny stuff with Larry too, where he's dressed up in the karate gi and has his nunchuck. We could do some fun stuff there. Zybszko's gonna have an ally though, in his feud with Ricky Steamboat. And the guy that's around, he's coming from Japan, Masa Saito.
Oh.
So you have the unit of Zybszko and Masa Saito as a group, and I think they can do some really interesting stuff on promos. Saito has legitimacy. He's an ass kicker, former prison inmate for throwing a boulder through a McDonald's. Had these matches with Zybszko in 1990 at the Tokyo Dome, by the way. They were feuding over the AWA title, but we could do a scenario where they're now teammates and they're going to be feuding with Ricky Steamboat. So what are your thoughts on Masa Saito?
Oh, he's one of those guys that you always imagine was the guy at the bar you don't want to mess with. like look legit, like as a tough guy, So those are good to have. Like what Jack Hager is right now in AEW. It's like that's a guy he's legit tough. Sure, he might kick you in the balls. Still gonna hurt. Still don't want to mess with him. So, I think having Saito there is really good as far as that, like adding a depth of internationalism to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, our relationship with Japan, as you see as we go through the roster, is going to be super important for us moving forward. They give us fresh matchups and a new style. Now, Ricky Steamboat, again, we go back to our homecoming theme. Ricky Steamboat, trained by Vern Gagne. And we're going to bring that up a lot. Now, Ricky is going to have allies as well, right? Because I'm really big on forming these subgroups, not stables, but subgroups, like allies. Like there needs to be, polarity. And people gravitate to each other, right? So Steamboat's going to have two allies that's going to help him against, Zybszko and Saito. His first ally, and I don't think they ever worked in the same promotion at the same time, Vic Steamboat. It's Ricky's brother.
Oh.
We're going to bring in Vic Steamboat. ICCW's Vic Steamboat as Ricky's brother, right? And they're going to be able, when we do, tag teams and six mans, Vic is going to be like Brutus Beefcake to Hulk Hogan or Arn Anderson to Ric Flair. And that's going to be like his role here. You could do some stuff to get some heat on Vic, and we can make the save, and we can do a lot of fun stuff there. What are your thoughts on Vic Steamboat?
I
know that's off the reservation a little bit. And I know that's like
it's just that he's
we're coming out of Rick Field, but I think based on the relationship he has with Ricky and the fact they never really spent much time together in any promotions, I think it's an interesting dynamic.
I would say it's an interesting dynamic. Teaming them up would be interesting. Gives you a solid tag team. It would be. You can
always turn Vic down the road too if you really want to.
Right, exactly. I think you get more out of Vic getting more out of being with Ricky than he does other way around. Because you get that Brian Adias feel,
Spoilers. Anyway, Ricky's also going to have another ally. He's going to have a protege coming over from Japan to help him with Masa Saito because it's going to be super important. His ally, his protege, will be Keiji Muto, the Great Muta, but not as the Great Muta, as Keiji Muto. Now, some of you may know this, that oftentimes in Japan, he's just Keiji Muto, just regular ass, not Great Muta. You know what I mean? Muta is more of an American thing. So Muta's more of an American thing. So I want to keep him as babyface, good-looking kid, by the way, Keiji Muto. He's going to be there as a protege of Ricky Steamboat, and as we have a lot of these Japanese talent coming his way, we'll have these fantastic matches. We're not going to reveal the fact that he's the Great Muta until possibly when the turn comes, and then he turns on Steamboat and becomes Muta down the road. But we'll see, how that plays out overall. I know a lot of people will know that's Muta. We're not trying to fool people here. We could, you could cut a promo around that, like, Keiji has this demon locked down inside of him. Finn Balor and the demon reminds me of Keiji Muta and Great Muta. kind of that dynamic where it's like Bruce Banner turning into the Hulk, and that's kind of the style. So we have Keiji Muto. So what are your thoughts on Muta and bringing Muta back to the States?
Oh, phenomenal! I mean, it's he should have been a much bigger. I mean, he was a star, but he should have been a much bigger star in NWA. Well, WCW.
They wanted to turn him babyface, and they mixed that deal, and also wanted him for the WWF. He didn't go. Yep. Blame Gary Hart, I guess. So that's kind of our main event scene here. In addition to that, I love Scott Norton. I don't love lumberjack Scott Norton, but I love fucking big, badass fucking Scott Norton. So Scott Norton is next. He is here. He's going to bring us, because we're going to have a lot of smaller guys on this roster based on who's available.
Yeah.
And with Scott Norton being gigantic as he is, being a legit badass arm wrestler, we saw glimpses of it in WCW, but I don't never think he was used right over there as well. He was used pretty good in New Japan. He's more of a New Japan star at this point anyway. So what are your thoughts on Scott Flash Norton?
Well, I think he gives a vibe, if it makes sense. It's sort of a Vader vibe.
Yep.
Like the powerhouse who's really physically strong and violent and can really beat the hell out of you. I think it's good to have one or two guys that have that legitimate sports background type thing where there's an air of legitimacy to their threat in the ring.
100%. 100%. And right off the bat, he's going to be entered into a rivalry with this man from Truth and Consequences, New Mexico. Cactus Jack is coming in and is going to feud with Scott Norton. And the reason why I picked Cactus Jack to feud with Scott Norton, I think Cactus can get Norton over because Norton can do fucking crazy shit to him. Like he can really fling him around. And especially with the promos that Cactus can cut on Norton, I think that's going to be an excellent matchup. Again, Cactus is insane looking. This is 1990. He's still in the Cactus Jack Manson phase. But I think he can do a lot of fun stuff with Cactus, and his promos are excellent. And I think he can do a lot of good things with Norton. A lot of interesting stuff too, where he can literally throw him through a wall if he really had to, and we can really get over the strength and power of Scott Norton. So we have Cactus Jack and we have Scott Norton. Now Cactus Jack has an ally as well, and he'll be making his debut around this time as well. Norman the Lunatic. That's right. We're bringing Norman the Lunatic. Now,
my God,
the role I have for Norman was basically be the same one that he had in WCW. He's a monster, but he's being manipulated by the more intelligent Cactus Jack to do this heinous acts. Much like Teddy Long was doing to him in WCW, much like Kevin Sullivan was doing to Rick Steiner, like Sonny was doing to Boo Bradley and Smoky Mountain. So we have Cactus who's manipulating, this monster, Norman the Lunatic, to attack Scott Norton and we'll put Scott Norton out. Scott Norton's going to have to bring in a tag team partner, but we're not going to get into that in this episode. We'll talk about that in the next episode. Right off the bat, we have two key rivalries. Owen Hart. Again, Owen Hart, we're fresh off that Blue Blazers run. He's doing phenomenal things over in Japan. And Owen is very interesting because, not to be, a certain way about it, we're going to pay Owen Hart a lot of money. We're also going to go up to Calgary. And, hey, Bruce, you want a job? We're going to bring Bruce Hart. He's going to work with us. Hey, Stu. We'll give you this paycheck every week, Stu. It'll be $1,000, $500. We'll give you this paycheck every week, Stu. Because we know Stu has a very large influence over the Hart family. And we're probably going to need that influence. And I think it's the right thing to do. But he has this influence. So, hey, baby, if Owen lets slip how much money he's making, maybe over the holidays, to Brett,
right?
And you have Stu, we're taking care of your dad, and your brother works for us, maybe that can kind of, make negotiations with Bret Hart circa 1992 more viable for us.
Yeah.
Because he's someone that we want to get in for the future, of course. Well, we want to have that ability down the road. Again, we're going to push Owen. Owen's going to have phenomenal matches, especially with the rest of the guys that we're bringing in here. Owen Hart is a main eventer in my eyes. He's not there yet. But as we get to 93, 94, maybe after Steamboat's run is done, I can see Owen Hart in that top spot 100%. So what are your thoughts on Owen?
Oh, Owen, he was one of my favorites for years. And I think it'll be great, to have him in. And again, I remember when his run was going on with Brett, and there was the "I'm not who's the shadow now," Brett.
Yeah.
One of my favorite memories is a house show where he was on the top turnbuckle, and I put my friend Nathan on my shoulders, and we had a sign that said, "Who's the shadow now, Brett?" And he pointed at us. We're like, "Yeah!" And but I always felt he was kind of like a lot of ways like Muta, underutilized. Like his feud with Brett really should have and maybe he was headed that way, but then the Blue Blazer thing happened, and it was like, what? And it goes back to we talked last show we did about the way Vince cools people off for years. Oh, he's hot. Let's put him under a mask. Why?
And when Owen came back after the screw job, and he was he was primed to be the number one babyface. Like he came in, he attacked Shawn Michaels, and he was primed and ready to go. And then they blew that up. And then he's hanging out with Jarrett, and now he's the Blue Blazer again. And then tragically he passed away. So we're going to try to avoid that. We're going to try to save Owen Hart here. I think he'll like Minnesota. I think he'll like the schedule because they don't run as often as the WWF. This is the way it is. But I think Owen, main event talent, either as a babyface or a heel, he can do both. He's a fantastic addition, and he helps us in other ways too. So paying him a substantial amount of money, not Sting money, but really good money, and it might perk up Brett, and maybe Davey, maybe Neidhart, Pillman, for possible negotiations with them down the road. In addition to this, hailing from Mexico, again, we're going to have some lucha stars, and I think bringing lucha to Minnesota might be a tough sell at first, but I think once they get integrated with the rest of our talent, I think people are really going to enjoy it, and it's something different than they're accustomed to, and it's fresh. So I'm bringing Octagon from Mexico. Again, a guy that can have great matches with our light heavyweights, which we're going to have quite a bit. A cool gimmick. He's essentially a ninja. You know what I mean? He's a Mexican ninja.
Yes.
Again, not that forced diversity is not good. Organic diversity is great. And we want to have as many different styles and as much representation across the board because we want to get the widest audience. We want to have all the demographics. We don't want just old. We want young, old. We want teens. We want black, white, Hispanic. We want everyone across the board. So in terms of a business decision, and we want to get the best talented guys, we've got to have some sort of representation. And I think bringing luchadors in from Mexico, I think that's fantastic. I think it brings a fresh, just, again, you forget how hot Lucha Libre was in the early 90s, especially in the United States. They ran the, When's Worlds Collide and all that stuff. And a lot of these guys end up getting over when they get to WCW. We're going to try to jump the trend here and get them in before, even WCW has a chance to bring these guys in. So Octagon is definitely high on my list. Again, he can have the great matches with Muta. He can have the great matches with Owen. So what are your thoughts on Octagon?
Well, I think it goes back to the organic blending of styles and things. I think it's good to, if you want worldly, you need to have worldly type talent. And not just a bunch of guys who, Mr. Japan, obviously a white dude in a mask. You need to have authentic stars from across the world that are stars. I always feel like, it's like when you watch soccer games or basketball games, certain players just, you get it, and you see them and like, that guy's a star. Or actors, like, that guy's whatever, And for Octagon to come in and to have this, presence, be able to go toe-to-toe with Muta and Owen is great for them because matchup-wise, it gives them flexibility. So if somebody gets hurt, you're not sitting there going, oh, they can only work really well with one or two guys. So-and-so can't keep up with them.
100%. And again, when you're picking luchadors, you want to get guys that can be able to translate to many different styles. Because what happened in WCW, all the lucha guys were just facing each other all the time, and that was just matches on Thunder or Worldwide, and it was ridiculous. And you weren't getting the most out of these guys. So Octagon is a big pickup. Again, we want to establish international relations. What it would be with EMML. I think it's EMML still at this time, not CMML. AAA eventually, because they're not there yet. We want to establish these relationships with, Canada, with the UK, with Europe, and with, Japan. We want to get these guys in. And having guys that are international, we can bring guys in and out. And it can keep the roster fresh. So we may not have an Octagon or a Muda full time, but we have them enough where we can rotate them in and out. And I think that really freshens up the roster. And it's something that they consider doing today. I think that's very important. You don't have the same 15 guys on your roster for 10 years. You go out of business by doing that.
Right.
AWA is the shining example of that, where they couldn't get away from the Bachwinkles and the Barons and the Vachons and the Ganyas, and they couldn't get away from that. And every time they have a new star, WWE would just pick them off. That's why we have to have these guaranteed contracts. So if we push guys, they're going to stick around for a while. And then the final two I want to go over on this show, because we're not going to go over the entire roster because it's large. Sure. But I want to get these guys definitely that are on the first show. Next up would be Bam Bam Bigelow.
Oh.
And Bam Bam and the Bundy's on the roster too. And when I was looking at guys that after Zybszcko, who's going to feud with Steamboat? So my two options right off the bat, it's either King Kong Bundy or Bam Bam Bigelow. I'm going with Bigelow at this point because I think Bundy is more damaged and he needs to be rehabbed. So we're going to do the whole Bundy 5-count, squashing everyone for a while until he's ready for Steamboat. Because the last time we seen Bundy, he's wrestling hillbilly Jim and midgets. And then he's gone and he's doing TV. We want to bring him back, but we have to rehab him. And not that Bam Bam was booked all that great, especially in WCW. Flair hated him. Everyone knows that story. And he was essentially buried there. And his WWF run wasn't very long. But he was a top guy there in that top grouping, although Andre didn't care for him either. But he wasn't as damaged. We can bring in Bam Bam, get him over for a couple of weeks, have him stretcher out Vic Steamboat, and we have a feud with him and Ricky moving forward after Steamboat's done with Zybszcko. So what are your thoughts on Bam Bam, and then what are your thoughts on Bundy?
Well, I'm always at a Bundy.
You always
fan.
Need fat guys. You always need fat guys.
You do, and I think that's underutilized. Even today, the guys they had, I think the fattest guy you can think of is probably, what's his face? Otis from Heavy Machinery, and he's not really a traditional fat guy. He's like a jacked fat guy. I'm talking like the guy I trained with Bulldozer, like 6'8", 500 pounds, is a massive dude, just crush, smush, whatever. And I think it's a good idea to rebuild Bundy up as a threat. And Bam Bam's so talented, you can kind of throw him in there and be like, hey, go
imagine
to town.
the matches with him and Steamboat.
Oh.
Imagine the stuff they could you can have Bam Bam do the whole fucking moonsault thing and miss it, and Steamboat gets the roll up 1, 2, 3. It's a lot of cool shit you can do with those guys, and I think Bam Bam's a big enough star. Again, he's known. He's a known entity. If your wrestling show is coming to Bloomington, Minnesota, and you see Ricky Steamboat versus Bam Bam Bigelow for the world title on it, I think if you're a fan of wrestling, you're going to go to that show. You know what I mean? I think that's going to be a draw. Now, we have to do some work to get us there. He's going to have to take out Vic Steamboat and stretch his ass out and get some heat on it because, again, we want to use a very Memphis kind of booking structure. And for those who don't know, I would probably bring in Bill Dundee as the booker of record here because I think he gets it, especially with his stuff in Mid-South. You can see where we want to go with this. But more importantly than titles, and titles are important, it's going to be personal issues that's going to draw the money here, especially in this promotion where it's located and the demographic that we're shooting for, which is the widest audience. Again, everyone can relate to this goon from fucking New Jersey beat the shit out of my brother because he wants to get a piece, he wants to get the title, and now I'm going after this guy. I think that's a very easy story for people to relate to. You can do a lot of fun stuff there. I'd probably bring in DDP, who's around, as Bigelow's manager. They're from the Jersey guys. They're together in WCW much later. I think DDP is going to be a manager for Bam Bam Bigelow, possibly for Bundy as well, because once I'm done, and it goes into a larger story, and we'll talk about this possibly later on. What do you do with monsters once you beat them?
Turn a face.
What do you do? So traditionally, what happens to these guys, they usually become a face. They're usually stuck in the mid card, and they're usually doing a comedy gimmick. See Earthquake. See Yokozuna. Even Bundy. He got beat, and now he's wrestling midgets in the next WrestleMania.
Right.
Oh, there was never really an official blow off to Earthquake and Hogan. You can say it was the Royal Rumble, but whatever. But now he's stuck in a tag team with Typhoon, tag team champions, and then eventually he becomes the Shark Attack and this fuck. What do you do with Bundy and Bigelow once they both get beat by Steamboat? You put them in a tag team, and now you put them against the Road Warriors. Bundy and Bigelow. Road Warriors not going to be able to throw these guys around. They're definitely a legit threat. Both Jersey guys, managed by DDP. We can have some fun in there. So guys, that's the first portion of this roster. Leave a comment in the comment section what you think about the roster. Take a look at who's again. It's going to be very important about who's available or who would be available as we pick a roster. Because I didn't want to go here and be like, oh, I'm going to grab Randy Savage or Ric Flair, Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan, and bring these guys in. That's ridiculous. That's not being realistic. And we want to do something that's realistic to a degree. It's still fantasy booking.
Right.
Again, all the guys that I mentioned, there's opportunities to get these guys. Road Warriors had their dispute. They left WCW. They go to WWF. Well, we're trying to intercept them. Same thing with Steamboat. Bundy's gone. So you should be able to pick him up. You make a deal with New Japan, and you make a deal with Stu, you get Owen. You get Keiji Muto. You might have to pay out the ass to New Japan and All Japan because you want to have a relationship with both of them. That's going to be important. Bigelow is doing Japan stuff, and he's doing mostly indies at this time. Vic Steamboat is not necessarily doing anything but independent. So we're talking about guys that we can actually bring in, not like, oh, I want to bring in Sting.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we really want to give it a go. So what you're going to see on this roster, you're going to see a lot of international talent. You're going to see a lot of indie talent. And I think we can pay better than the USWA. So you're going to see quite a bit of USWA talent trickling in because we could probably pay better. Portland as they go down. And we'll talk about Portland on probably the next episode because that's going to be important for a relationship down the road. But overall, that's where we're going to stand for this first episode in terms of our roster and what we're doing with feuds. Again, we're going to do a Scott Norton Cactus Jack feud with Norman. Running some interference. We're going to have Steamboat and Zybszcko, and then from there, we're going to transition to Steamboat and Muto taking on Saito and Zybszcko, and then transition from there to go into a feud with Bam Bam, who will probably attack Vic Steamboat and put him out of action for a little bit. But that's where we stand right now. So, Matt, what are your thoughts on our direction and literally the first couple of weeks here?
Oh, it's a good start. And again, you're going to need, if you're kind of rebooting direction of the show, you're going to need star power. You're going to need intriguing storylines, some name value. So I think it's a good way to go about it. That's a good start.
All right, guys. On that note, before we leave, I just want to give you a state of the channel address here. Right now, we're rapidly approaching 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, so I'm very excited for that. So if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. We average approximately 1,000 views per video, which I think is pretty good depending on what we do and what our content is. So I'm happy about that. And our most viewed video is at 10,000 views. So for those of you who watch that video, thank you so much, and I appreciate that. I appreciate all of you. If you guys have any thoughts, don't be afraid to leave a comment. Hit that like button. You know the drill here. It's YouTube, for Christ's sakes. And so for Matt Riley, I'm Alex G. Have a good night.
Fans in this area well aware of the fact that a young man from down in neighboring Milwaukee, a very impressive athlete in the Olympics, I'm talking about Laurent Soucy, Bobby Heenan. You've got a big smile on your face tonight.
Impressive in the Olympics. Who cares about watching a bunch of children wrestle? Who cares about the Olympics? Oh, it's a great thing for the country, but who cares about Laurent the Sissy? That's his name?
Laurent Soucy.
Can you imagine? 9 months they had to come up with another name, and that's the best they could do. Laurent. That's the most important thing they could come up with in 9 months. Shows you the mentality of his parents. Of course, he went to the University of Wisconsin, right?
In Madison.
Don't take a whole lot to get in there. I guess you have to be able to, the entrance exam, you have to be able to write your name in 3 different colors of crayon. I could care less your wrestling ability. I could care about your amateur background. You're in the ring now with a professional. I'm going to go behind that man so much he's going to think he's stuck in a revolving door. I'm going to take him down, take him around, show him the town. I'm going to reverse neck snap his neck. I'm going to dislocate both his shoulders. Then I might just paintbrush until my hands are swollen shut. But another good news for you and everybody else. I have signed. I went to Japan in July. I was there the whole month.
Aware of that.
I'm not aware of what you're aware of. I'm aware of my business. I went to Japan in July, and I signed the most lucrative contract for Nick Bockwinkel in the history of professional wrestling, for any world champion. He's going to defend his title in Germany, and he's going to defend his title in Japan, and I pulled it off. That's why I'm Manager of the Year 4 times in a row. And high flyers, you can run, but there's no place to hide. You're running now like rats. The water level's coming up to your bellies, and you got no place to hide.
Don't miss the $100,000 20-man battle royal. Last man remaining in that ring of the 20 men receives $100,000. This is the first time ever in the Twin Cities area a 20-man battle royal. 6 championship class matches will take place before the battle royal, including these men also: Abdullah the Butcher, King Kong Brody, the Great American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, the Bruiser, the Great Wilbur Snyder, 7-time world champion Harley Race, Blackjacks Mulligan and Lanza, King Kong Brody, Big Bad Bob Duncombe, Ayatollah Jerry Blackwell, the Crusher, the Baron, the Fabulous Ones, and the Mad Dog, plus others. Get your tickets now.